God bless Texas.
Hi everybody, this is my 2011 College Football Big 12 Preview, part number 7, and today we head to Aggie Land to talk about Texas A&M. You know, last season at the halfway point, A&M was 3-3, and it looked like they were on their way toward a season of mediocrity. Then of course, Ryan Tannehill emerging as their starting quarterback, and the ground game improving big time, and the rush defense doing their part as well. A&M went from 3-3 to a 6-game winning streak, closing out the regular season at 9-3 with a share of the Big 12 South Championship, including victories over OU, Nebraska, and Texas. Something that if you can do in the same season, I don't care what the status of those teams are, that is impressive. And even though A&M lost the Cotton Bowl to LSU, it was still, you have the feeling, a season of big-time improvement for A&M and a lot of optimism for this season, considering how many players A&M has coming back. A&M is going to be a threat this year in the Big 12, make no mistake about it. Offensively, we have to talk about the quarterback, of course, Ryan Tannehill, who really emerged as a leader for this particular team. It helps to have a good ground game, which we'll talk about in a second, but I really felt that the leader of this team was Tannehill, and the amazing job that he did for that team during the second half of the season. Had a nice game, of course, against Oklahoma, and Tannehill coming back this season, it's going to be many of the same players, so the chemistry part of this team should still be there. The ground game, though, boy, this was one area last season, the second half of the season, that was enormous. The play of Cyrus Gray, who comes back, probably will be first team All Big 12 if he has the same season that he had last year. The last 7 games, rushed for at least 100 yards, and in that stretch, rushed for over 200 yards against the Longhorns in Austin. So Gray's back, and also complimenting him will be Christian Michael. The wide receiver group, one of the best in all of college football, led by Jeff Fuller, who decided to come back another year for A&M. What a plus right there. And then also Ryan Swope, who's a speedster, and you also have Uzoma Nwachuku. So these 3 receivers, about as good as you're going to find anywhere. And the offensive line last year, they had 2 true freshmen at the tackle positions. And I thought, as far as the rush offense, they really did their part. Luke Jokel and Jake Matthews. This Aggie team returns so much, and there's so much potential with this team. Need to do a little bit better job, though, in the form of pass blocking. It's going to be key number 1, I think, for this Aggie team is going to be pass blocking, because last year, despite A&M's offensive successes, they still gave up 37 sacks in all of 2010. That's about 3 a game. So this Aggie offensive line is going to be very experienced, but it doesn't mean that there still isn't work to be done. So really watch for the play of the tackles from Jokel and from Matthews. The left guard does return for A&M. That's Brian Thomas. And the guy who did play on the offensive line last year, Patrick Lewis, he moves from guard to center. So you have most of your offensive line back along with a tight end, Nehemiah Hicks. So experience is there for A&M, but we'll see how they do as far as pass protection. I think key number 2 to this team is going to be the Joker. And we're not talking about Batman. We're talking about the Joker position in Tim DeRuyter's 3-4 defensive alignment. This was a position that Von Miller played from the linebacking spot. First team All-American, 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft. Yeah, you think Miller was a pretty good player. Of course he was. And he's not just somebody that you could just replace just like that. He will be missed, along with the leading tackler for the Aggies, Michael Hodgins, who's also a linebacker. But the really good thing about DeRuyter is this defensive coordinator is the amazing improvement that A&M has made on the defensive side. Before he got there in 2009, the year before, they were 105th in the country in total defense, and the year before that they were even worse. In 2010, the Aggies improved 50 spots from 105 to 55th in total D. The 3-4 alignment, I think, made the biggest difference in the world because of the involvement of the linebackers. And that's why I think this position is so critical, can make the biggest difference, in fact, I think, between A&M being another 9-win team and maybe getting to that next level. It's that imperative because of how much Hodgins and Miller meant to that team. So for DeMontre Moore, for Garrett Williams, who had 115 tackles, and for Sean Porter, these 3 linebackers, they're really going to be the focus of this team. Something really good that A&M had going for them last year, besides the fact that their overall defense improved, was their rush defense was outstanding. #1 in the Big 12 last year in rush D. Not too many teams had success on the ground against the Aggies, and it helps to have Tony Gerard, Eddie back on the defensive inside, along with Jonathan Mathis, and a defensive line having a guy like Strahan return as well. So the front seven, the line, feel good about them. The linebacking core, we'll just have to wait and see. The secondary, they're going to be very good. The corners especially, because of the way they can play man-to-man defense. Coriel Judy is going to be one of the better corners you'll find in the Big 12, and he's also a special teams threat. He returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns last year. I know this because one of them was against my Sooners. So Judy is back, and also Terrence Frederick from the other corner, he returns as well. Dustin Harris, who statistically had a good year for the Aggies last season, he's back as well. So the Aggie defense returning 8 starters. I think overall that they should have a better year, but the play of the linebacking core, I think, is going to dictate just how far A&M goes. We know the offense will still do good, but defensively, people in College Station are really, I don't know if they're nervous about this or apprehensive, but it will get a lot of attention, those linebackers. Look at the special teams. A&M's going to be good in this area. We've already mentioned Judy as far as a kick returner, but the punt returner is pretty good as well for A&M in the form of Kendrick McNeil, and it also helps to have Randy Bullock back as your place kicker. I think key number 3 to this team, it's going to be this critical 2-game stretch. Okay, September 24th, the game against Oklahoma State, and playing Arkansas in Arlington the following week. Against these 2 teams in the last 3 years, A&M's 0-5. So it's not just the fact that you're playing 2 good teams, but you're trying to overcome a hump mentally. The belief that you can beat the Cowboys and you can beat the Razorbacks, and if you do it, you'll have to do it back-to-back weeks. You can beat these 2 teams, then suddenly you emerge nationwide as one of the teams to beat in all of college football. It helps to get Oklahoma State at home, and then the following week, even though Arkansas no longer has Ryan Mallett quarterbacking, it'll still be a pretty good offense, especially on the ground, and defensively, Arkansas won't be too shabby either. So that'll be a pretty good game in Arlington in early October between the Hogs and the Aggies. Arkansas's won the previous 2 in that series. So I think that's a pretty big stretch. As we talk about the schedule as a whole for A&M, though, I don't think it lays out that badly. Getting Missouri for the 2nd straight year at home in what has got to be a revenge game for A&M, and getting Texas at home Thanksgiving week, that'll help. Got to go to Texas Tech, though, and then the toughest game on the schedule right now, all indications, is that game on November 5th, which we'll talk about in a second, in Norman against the Oklahoma Sooners, the defending Big 12 champions. All eyes look at that game right now as maybe being the one for Texas A&M in terms of the big picture of the Big 12. Realistic goal for this team, I think, is the Big 12. I mean, realistic goal, win the Big 12 championship, and if you could do that, wow, BCS appearance for Mike Sherman, who hasn't been there that long for Texas A&M, an opportunity right there in the waiting because of all the players you have back. I think the time has to be now for A&M. I think that has to be their mentality. A game to watch this season, it is going to be that November 5th showdown in Norman against the Sooners. It's a big assumption, but assuming you can beat OSU and you can beat Arkansas the following week, then that takes you to being a top 5 team in the country. Oklahoma, if they take care of business, should remain 2nd or 3rd in the country, maybe even higher than that. And that game will be one of the big games to watch in all of college football this season. Oklahoma will be the favorite, and they should be. Nobody's won in Norman in 6 years. But if you look at that schedule for OU, there's one team that poses a big threat to breaking the nation's longest home winning streak, it would be Texas A&M, because they beat OU last year. Granted, it was in College Station, but many of those players are back. So you know A&M will not come into that game feeling intimidated whatsoever. This game will have so much riding on it, Big 12 implications, and perhaps national implications as well. So that's really a game to watch this season. OU will be favored, but it's no guarantee that they're going to beat A&M. That will do it for my A&M preview for 2011. We'll talk Baylor Bear football on my next show. So long for now.